Back to the grind with the only free MMA channel that fucking matters, full-time MMA. And let's get to the Ultimate Fighter finale. Michael Johnson versus Justin Gaethje. Supposed to be Cody Garbrandt versus TJ Dillashaw. Michael Johnson versus Justin Gaethje predictions. Let's do it. We're gonna make this as quick as possible. We got in the first fight, motherfucking, who is it? Jordan Johnson? Yeah, that's his name. That's his fucking name. I got it pulled up. But anyways, we got Marcel Fortuna versus Jordan Johnson. Marcel Fortuna is 9-1, 1-0 in the UFC with the KO over Anthony Hamilton, which was performance of the night. Jordan Johnson is 7-0, 1-0 in the UFC, a decision. He's a wrestler. I'm going with Jordan Johnson in this fight, the 7-0 wrestler, because Marcel Fortuna's only loss came to Jesse Taylor in 2012. Jesse Taylor's also a wrestler. Jordan Johnson's coming over into MMA, and he's a collegiate wrestler. So Marcel Fortuna has lost to a guy that wrestle fucked him before. He's going against an undefeated wrestler. I mean, and let's be honest, we don't know too much about these guys. So from the little bit of research I did do, I'm going to go ahead and pick the undefeated wrestler. Let's go down to Elias Theodoro versus Brad Tavares. I literally picked Elias Theodoro first here, all the way until I was thinking about the next fight, and I was like, man, I'm not picking against another Hawaiian fighter. I picked against Yancey when I wanted to form for the Hawaiian UFC Hawaii, and now I'm rooting for fucking Brad Tavares. If he gets this W, it just strengthens the case for UFC Hawaii. Max Holloway, Yancey Medeiros, Brad Tavares. And knowing that I'm sure these Hawaiian fighters are training as hard as they fucking can to get a UFC to Hawaii. I'm sure they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's, and they're not going to give anybody an inch or a mile. So I had Elias Theodoro. He's 14-1. It's Theodoro versus Brad Tavares, 14-5. I had Elias Theodoro with the win. Elias has a win over Sam Alvey, and his only losses come to Thiago Santos. Elias is known as the Cardio King. He's a decisionator as well. He likes to decision. He not likes to decision, but he goes to decision quite a bit, and he outlasts guys. Brad Tavares has won numerous decisions, so I don't know if that's going to be his problem, especially with him training as hard as he probably is for UFC Hawaii, trying to get it there. So I don't think he's going to lose to cardio. His losses, he has 5 losses, but they come to the cream of the crop. Robert Whittaker, Yoel Romero, Tim Boach. He's beaten Nate Marquardt by decision. Nate Marquardt's a veteran. So, I mean, I had Elias Theodoro at first, but this is like a heart overhead pick for me. I'm going with Brad Tavares to get the W. Jared Cannonier versus Nick Rourke. Jared Cannonier is 9-2 in the UFC. 9-2 overall, 2-2 in the UFC. Nick Rourke, this is his first fight. He took it on short notice to get into the UFC. 7-0, undefeated. First fight in the UFC though. Jared lost to Glover Teixeira by decision, was taken down 3 separate times by Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira was able to take him down and win a decision. So he got dominated by decision by Glover Teixeira. They also lost to Sean Jordan, and he's only beat Ian Kutaleba and some other guy I've never heard of. But Ian Kutaleba, even though Jared Cannonier was able to beat him, Ian was able to take him down 6 times in the fight. He's going against Nick Rourke, first fight in the UFC, but he is a collegiate wrestler. So he's going to be able to probably take him down as many times as Ian Kutaleba or Glover Teixeira. And Jared Cannonier honestly has been very unimpressive in the UFC. He's 2-2 in the UFC, came in at 7-0 as well, but he hasn't looked too good in his fights in the UFC, I'll say that. So I'm going with Nick Rourke, the newcomer. Mark Diakase versus Drakkar Klose. Fucking Mark Diakase, one of the rising star prospects, not on a lot of people's radar. He should be. I forgot about him on my rising star prospect list because I wasn't thinking about him because his last fight was a while ago. But anyways, this guy fucking reminds me of Michael Venom Page without the holes in his game. He's not scared to take the fight to the mat, to like pull guard for a submission. He goes for submissions. He knocks guys out. He's a fucking wild ass animal in there. He does backflips and shit, break dances after the fight. But when he's fighting, to me, he seems more focused. He's not doing all the crazy dancing shit in the fight, trying to showboat. No, he's in there to kill, and then he just fucking is excited afterward and does flips and shit. But his movement is on fucking fleek. This dude, Mark Gaethje, has the potential to be one of the greatest fighters of all time if he continues what he's doing. He's only 3-0 in the UFC. He's 12-0 overall, but his 3-0 in the UFC, 2 of them are finishes. And I'm telling you, if you watch him, you're going to be fucking impressed. So, I'm going with Mark Gaethje to beat 6-0 Drakkar Klose. Drakkar Klose, let me see if I have much notes on him. He's 1-0 in the UFC division versus Devin Powell in the UFC division. He's 1-0 in the UFC. He won by decision, and it was versus Devin Powell. Devin Powell is a guy who is 0-2 in the UFC. One of those losses coming to Drakkar Klose, and one of those coming to Alan Horcher. So the only guy in the UFC Drakkar has really beat is a guy that's not hasn't really proven himself in the UFC yet. So I'm going with Mark Gaethje to come in and continue his rise to stardom all over Drakkar's head. Now, co-main event, the Ultimate Fighter finalist, Diego Lima versus Jesse Taylor. Diego Lima is Douglas Lima's brother. Douglas Lima is the welterweight champion at Bellator. This fight is super interesting to me because Douglas Lima, Diego Lima's brother, is going to be fighting Rory McDonald for the belt. Both of these guys are Lima brothers, and they're both going against wrestlers, and arguably the biggest fights of their lives. Jesse Taylor was a dominant force on The Ultimate Fighter. If you weren't watching it, his wrestling, he seemed a lot bigger than these guys. He almost seemed a weight class above some of these guys, but he was just really good at cutting weight, or those guys were not cutting much weight, because he seemed really big. Jesse Taylor did, and he used his weight to his advantage, and he dominated a lot of guys with his wrestling. Even a guy that fights for the UFC, he's fighting on the prelims. James Krause, he's going to be fighting Toothless Tom on the prelims. But he dominated James Krause, a guy that's already in the UFC with his wrestling. So I'm just going to pick Jesse Taylor to come in here and also beat Diego Lima. Diego Lima, he's a good fighter. He's a smart fighter. I do think he's going to try and keep the fight standing. But so did James Krause, and it doesn't really work when he's just smothering you and getting you to the ground, grinding you against the fence, hitting you with actual ground and pound, strong ground and pound, damaging ground and pound. It might be a little harder to keep Diego Lima down than James Krause, but in the end, I just see it maybe being a little slower fight, but the same result, grinding him out. So I'm going with Jesse Taylor here. Main event, Michael Johnson versus Justin Gaethje, the motherfucking highlight reel. 17-0 Justin Gaethje versus 8-10-11 Michael Johnson. This fight is really a toss-up to me. I'm going with Justin Gaethje, even though it's fucking, a lot of things are telling me to go with Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson usually wins these brawl battles, like against Dustin Poirier or Eddie Alvarez. When he takes the fight to people, he's able to usually win those exchanges. But it's going to be a little different. I don't know exactly Justin Gaethje's style. Michael Johnson lost to Nate Diaz due to the reach. The UFC.com doesn't have Justin Gaethje's reach, so I don't know his reach, but I'm sure he's not as long as Nate Diaz. He is taller than Dustin Poirier, but I don't know if it's going to be more like the Dustin Poirier fight or the Nate Diaz fight. Nate Diaz was really able to outclass Michael Johnson with his reach. I don't know how long Justin Gaethje is, but I do know he's more closer to Nate Diaz's height than he is Dustin Poirier's. And I know Michael Johnson does get clipped up on some of these exchanges when he comes in, but at the same time, he applies pressure that is hard to deal with. I don't know if anyone's going to apply the same pressure to Justin Gaethje, but I don't even know if Michael Johnson's going to be able to apply the pressure to Justin Gaethje. I haven't seen many of Justin Gaethje's fights, but I know his fucking nickname is the highlight reel, and he's undefeated, and he's coming in, and he said he guarantees either he gets knocked out or he's going to knock some people out. He's coming in here to perform. He's coming in here to be entertaining. He's coming in here to be a fan favorite. He's not coming in here to protect his record. So I got to fucking respect that and put some respect on his name. He's undefeated. I'm not going to pick Michael Johnson against him, even though Michael Johnson is the UFC veteran. I do want to pick Michael Johnson. This one's really close to me. It's hard it's hard to pick against Michael Johnson here, but at the same time, I'm just going to go ahead and pick Justin Gaethje because it's not like I'm betting money, dude. I'm just making a prediction. I don't give a fuck if I'm wrong. What the fuck you tell Matt? So I don't know what else to say, man. It is what it is. These are my predictions. I'm going to get a chat spot up with these predictions and the pay-per-view predictions up on the same page. So let's get it. I don't know what else to say, man. Fuck it. It is what it is. Let the haters know what the fuck you tell Matt in the comments. Dude.